Humanity. Manatee. Not the manatee in the waters of Florida. Beautiful, darling. How would you describe a manatee? But not that anyway. But folks, good glorious day to you from my humble homestead in Canada. I don't know if you can see this beautiful blue sky. It's late February, the 25th. Anyway, the sun is shining. There's not a single cloud in the sky. The panels are clear, harvesting power. Batteries are full. Feeling good. Humanity. Where to start? Let me take you on a little journey. I think this will be a good start. I'm from my tribe. I'm sorry. I can't say tribe. I can't say tribe. What? My ancestry. Can I say my ancestry? Tribe is not woke. Okay. So my ancestry is from a region of the world. I'll name some. I'll work my way backwards, forwards, and that's what happens when you don't rehearse. And I'll tell you some of these names of the civilizations, and then you might have heard of some of them. I think maybe. If I don't get this right, by the way, folks, let me know. I'm not a historian. I just this is the way I was told, I guess, when I was wee lad. Sumerians, Mesopotamians. So I guess Sumeria, Mesopotamia. That's about 10,000 years ago, and then Babylon. You know, the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, and some songs you might have heard. They came after. They're about maybe 7,000 years ago, and then Elam and Elamites, and roughly around the same time there were Medea, which I guess is tiny bit predates Parth and Persia. You've heard of them, and then what came after them? Anyway, but Byzantine. Anyway, so let's just stop at Persia for a second. So 539, say 540 BC, years BC, before Christ. There was this guy. There was no such thing as Persia at the time. So there was this guy, I don't think anyway. Like I said, let me know if I'm wrong. This guy by the name of snow's falling off the roof, by the name of Cyrus, if you've heard of Cyrus, not to be mistaken with Ceres, the star. Cyrus with a CY and Ceres is SI. Anyway, you know. So this guy who started the Persian Empire wasn't as big as, after, like, when the next following emperors came after him, Cambyses, Darius, Xerxes. They all came after him, and it got bigger and bigger. And when he came to power, when he started Persia, he went and freed 50,000 Jews that were enslaved from the neighboring Babylon, and freed them. And on the day that he took reign, he wrote this thing called, you may have heard of it, Bill of Rights and Freedom. And I think at the height of the Persian Empire, there were 25 nations and in the spans of 3 continents. And so his Bill of Rights said that people had a right, everybody should have a right to practice their religion, their beliefs. That's nice. Snow's fallen off of everyone's roofs. Their religions, their beliefs, their traditions, their language, their way of life. Maybe more, but I can't remember right now. Again, I should have looked things up. But, I do these videos raw. So, as you see it, there's no whatever scripting. And so he went on to say that as he grew, as Persian Empire grew, and all these nations that were joined and that were under this Persian umbrella, they could have their own kings and queens and traditions and languages and way of life, and they themselves, as these micro mosaic kind of thing nations under the umbrella of Persian Empire, could not also have slaves. They couldn't oppress another neighboring country or province or however region that's next to them, because they all fall under the giant umbrella of Persian Empire, and that he would persecute them by not abiding by this federal, if you were, entity. He made it possible. He said that kings and queens could be sued under his reign or under his umbrella of Persian Empire if they were unjust to their subjects, because so there was like a king. Each one of these 25 regions, 25 25 countries or nations were under this one massive Persian Empire. So you have to remember when this was. I mentioned this before. But what did we do the math? No, we didn't do the math. So we said 539, 540 years BC. So if you go by the Christian calendar, I don't, but if you think, for the sake of argument, most people do. So we're now it's 2025, and then we just add 500. No, the wind's picking up. 540 to that. So that's 2,565 years. Anyway, you do the math. Thereabouts, over 2,500 years ago. 2,500 years ago, there was slavery in Egypt. The pyramids, pharaohs you've seen in movies. The Chinese had slaves. Greece had the Greeks, the Greeks had slaves. Romans had slaves. Who else had slaves? Pretty much at that time, it seems like everybody had slaves, and slavery was a thing. It's not even like if you went and captured another country or region. They didn't necessarily have countries per se as we think of them now. They were regions. Like Italy wasn't an Italy in the map. When you think of Italy, the boot, that's kind of like kicking Sicily kind of thing. It didn't exist as that in Italy. In fact, Sicilians, even I don't think today they consider themselves Italian or Italians. Excuse me. I'm allergic to sun. Not to sun, but the direct, when it hits you, I think it's even called a chew. Anyway, digressing. So at the time, everybody had slaves. And this guy and his empire, this Persian Empire, was so mighty and big that they were the only ones that successfully beat more than one time the Roman Empire. So they weren't like this little fringe, little Mickey Mouse operation country that would say, hey, excuse me, big guys, big boys, yes, boys, could we not have slavery, or could we have autonomy over our own region, whatever? They were big. They were the giants. They were the biggest, one of the biggest, if one of the two biggest, if not bigger than the Romans. And So they could have easily bulldozed over everyone and everything, or he could have, over everyone and everything, and said, "No, you're under Persian Empire. Out with your traditions, out with your language, out with your way of life, your whatever you believe in, and it's going to be this." And he himself had a religion that he practiced. He was a Zoroastrian. You may have mentioned me say that before, or at the end of some of my videos, I say I'm not a I don't believe in organized religions, but this was the first. The Zoroastrians were the first monotheist religion, and what I just like. Not every religion is wrong, folks. I don't want you to think that I hate organized religions. I just don't like what they've become and who's running it now and what it's all about now. But no one and nothing is 100% wrong, just as no one and nothing is 100% right in my belief. So the Zoroastrian, what are they at their core? They had good thoughts, good words, and good deeds, and that's a nice thing to say or to believe and to actually follow through with. So I adopted that, and I adopt many little bits and pieces from little religions, but I don't believe in any of them. So yeah, this guy came and said this, and you also have to remember that at the time when you think about the Romans, they're going parallel with them. Romans called everyone. I mean, every time they took over a place, all the people that they captured. They were slaves automatically. They were slaves, and they even called them barbarians because they weren't of Roman blood or noble Roman blood. In fact, a lot of people wanted to have their kids born in Rome so that they could have some kind of status. Just like today, a lot of people want to go to bigger cities of China, like Shanghai and whatever, to have their kids born there, because although they themselves couldn't have a status, maybe their kids could because of the birth certificates. All right, so then, I mean, it's insane that someone could say that so many years ago, 25 plus thousand years ago, 100 years ago, and today we think of ourselves as so advanced, and those people were so, anyone from before, so backwards. But throughout the history, I mentioned before him there was slavery, which is one of the worst things you can do to someone, with shackles, and you don't have anything of your own. Your food, you work harder than your master or whatever mistress. You don't have a food of your own. You have to bend to their will, whatever they want from you, and that continued. It was just this one instance. Isn't it insane? 2,500 years ago, one guy, big empire, but eventually, I suppose, it eroded to what it is today, which is not at all that Persian Empire of 2,500 years ago. But the fact is that throughout history, that happened. What came after them? So let's see. Let me think. What in the big historical documented of slavery, just slavery I'm talking about, not just butchering each other. I mean, having enslaved. I think it's easier if you kill someone, I think, than to have them become your slave, because it's forever torturing. Even if someone goes to jail for killing someone, eventually they get released after maybe 20, 30, 40, 50 years. But if you're a slave for life. Horrible thing, horrible thing. But anyway, so then after that, what did we have? I didn't rehearse this, so I'm missing. I'm going to be probably missing some times, some events. But then, I think the Vikings had slaves, and that was just 500 years ago. I'm sure there was when. I'm sure throughout the history, every time somebody took over someone else, it became their country. I'm not even talking about Romans now. We're moving forward now. Vikings had slaves. Here the British had slaves, and some early Americans had slaves, and then they abolished it. And you think, wow, abolishing the slavery, there's a Lincoln or Washington or whoever did it 300 years ago. folks, we're talking about 2,500 years ago, this guy did it. And throughout that time, people have been slaves by one country or another. And if you think it's over, sadly not. Have you heard of, it's getting bigger and bigger, so much that I'm hearing. Human trafficking, child, whatever. And that's today. As I'm talking to you now, like I said, if you count the Christian calendar year, 2025, human trafficking is huge now. It's in Europe. It's in Far East. I don't want to say name any particular countries. It's probably even here. It's probably even in the States. It's in all these countries that are big and mighty, and you think they consider themselves to be first world countries, or above all the idiocies of the third world developing countries. No, it's happening right here. And it's a horrible thing to be a slave to someone for whatever reason. And none of these are even justified. However, like a family debt or something. It's not even like that. They just trick you into coming to another country, and then they just get you, take your passport, and then whatever. And so you might think that, say, like this slavery, this modern day slavery, is pretty bad, and you might say there's a special place in hell for these people doing it today. And you're right. I agree with you. But I mentioned this before. For every finger that we point at someone, there are 3 more pointing back at ourselves. What I mean is that these people that are doing these slavery encampments or whatever, they're just businessmen. Men, yes, they're businessmen. Well, I know there's some women in there too, but they're mostly men. They're businessmen. What I mean is that they're just providing a service because, I'm not saying me, but we as humanity, that this topic of today's chat is, demands it. And it's a decent amount of money, good chunky change in it. Because if it was like organic farming, then all these people wouldn't be trafficking. That it would be, they would go and do something that's more profitable, like maybe drugs or whatever, weapons. And so it's very profitable. So people that are asking for these services are really the worst, lowest form of humanity. And then the second lowest, yes, and the people that are actually providing these services. But really, which is, again, ourselves. And I remember, I'll give you another example. I remember, I'm sure this one, many of you want to agree with, but that's my belief. I remember in high school, talking about Nazis and the whole concentration camps and the mass, whatever. And I remember classmates and later on adults, since then, I hear people saying, "Oh, I can't believe that people stood around and allowed that to happen. If I was there at that time, I wouldn't do that. I would stand up for these people and say, no, what are you doing? Stop that." And I would stand up for them. But folks, that's complete BS, because stuff like that, any genocide, which I think slavery to me is another form of genocide, happening today, right now. I gave you an example, but more than that, something so that you don't think I'm here talking about slavery all day. It's not. Only a few years ago, these big corporations, governments, whatever, came together and forced a lot of people, probably a lot of you would agree, to inject yourself with poisons. And if you didn't do it, you would get laid off from your job. You would get pressured into it. They would do whatever they could to get you to go and get, I don't want to say the word, because then they'll probably take this video off the internet. But that's what it is. When the chemical makeup of something is poison, I believe, and you injected it, you force inject it to people without their free will, or if someone says, "I don't want it," I don't want that. That's why I came to a first world country where there's freedom of speech, freedom of choosing how I want to live, and I'm not even near anyone else. And you force these people to do it. Well, you're no better than any oppressor in any, historically speaking, from any country, any region of the world that did that. Then you're. So this is what what I mean by humanity. It doesn't matter how many years ago people existed. Like, you can go back to 10,000 years. They were probably forcing someone to do something else. And I know that some of you are probably thinking, well, they're doing that to animals, and you're right. You're 100% right, and you're not even 1% wrong. If you buy a carton of eggs and it doesn't say on it that they were free roamed or cage free or free range or whatever, you can be sure there are many chickens, hens in a cage. You understand what I'm saying? That's not another form of slavery. Come on. Same for cows, the cattle ranches that are same for pig farms, same for turkey, whatever. If they're not organic or free range or whatever, we're doing it to them. Now, some people don't maybe want to turn a closed eye to that and not say, well, these are just animals and they don't count. But you can't do that when it comes to your own race, and yet we are, and it's horrible. And I want you to consider this, for instance. Lately, for a minute, AI and all this is in the news, or everyone's talking about how AI this and AI that. And my argument is this, if you would just indulge me for a minute. How much worse can AI be than us ourselves? You say flesh and blood. This is not an AI generated video, but I'll come to that too in a minute. But how much worse can AI do? If AI does the exact same thing to us as we are doing to ourselves, at least there's an excuse for that. You can say this AI is not a human being. It doesn't have emotions. It doesn't have feelings. It doesn't have, it's not a sentient thing, whatever, right? That's the excuse. Well, what's the excuse for us doing this to ourselves with all the emotions and the empathy? And not everybody has it, I know, but a majority of us pretend like we are, and we do have these emotions. What can they do worse than that? And yet, they would be cheaper to operate, easier to run. You can blame them. You can point your finger all you want. You can blame them, or you can blame the programmer for whoever programmed. I will take that any day over me thinking another human being is oppressing other human beings, slavery, imposing their views, forcing them to do whatever. I have a hard time with that. So just one last thing that I mentioned. I said I'm going to come to this. Now, folks, if you're really open-minded by now, you probably have some inkling of how nothing is really impossible. If it's impossible today as we know it, it could be because we don't know. Tomorrow someone would not have come up with a concept to disprove it and say, oh my God, this thing is parallel universes, multiverses, all these other things, like a black matter, dark matter. These were things that we didn't think existed and were possible, and they are now. No one, you wouldn't even bat an eyes to it. But so how about this concept? How do you know, or how do we know with 100% certainty that we ourselves are not already a creation of an AI? What you've heard me say before, an AI in the sky, or the programmer up there, right? How do you know that with 100% certainty? How can you be so 100% sure that we are not already creations of this thing? And it's like I said this decades ago. So this is like a game. This is a game that a programmer designed. I don't play video games, but I have seen some for a second or minute or two. I don't have patience for that. So they're like mini levels, right, of games, and if you make it to the second level, you go to the third level. This is for folks who believe in reincarnation, for instance. And then you have, and then as you go along, you fight I don't know, beasts and monsters and whatever. And just as this is life, right? You were already doing that. There are a lot of hurdles. There are a lot of oppressors, there are dictators you fight along the way. Big corporations that just want to destroy you, like the pharmaceuticals. And then, or sometimes there's a pot of gold or pot of money that you collect along the way. This is the game. Well, here happens too. Once in a while, you find a grain that is, oh my God, or once in a while you get a raise. Once in a while, everyone's had that in their life. Once in a while, you're able to sell something for more than you bought it for, like your house, for instance. So there's that, and then once in a while, there's like a wizard or a wise man with not necessarily with a staff or a pointy hat, but as a wise man that if you tap him or click on him or something, you gain wisdom or some kind of superpower or something. You can call him a prophet. You can call him Jesus or Moses or Ishmael or Muhammad or whatever you want. You understand what I'm saying? This is a game. And then you have maybe a player has maybe 3 lives. I don't know what it is. If you've played a video game, you know what I mean. So you may die, and then you start where you have like 3 or 4 chances, and then you go, oh, you're 1 man down, 1 life down. You come back again. You go to the next level. Maybe in this 3rd level, something kills you, and then you die again, and then you use your last life, and you go from the 3rd level to maybe a 4th level, whatever, and then maybe you die, and then it says game over, and then you reset and you begin again. I don't understand how this here is any different. This so-called life is any different than a video game. I just don't see how. I mean, if you have a compelling argument against it, let me know. But this has been my belief for the past 20, 25 years. And I've seen nothing since then to make me, or seen or heard nothing to make me want to change my mind. That's just my belief, and I honestly don't think anybody can prove me wrong 100%. But anyway, so folks, I don't know. I'll leave you with just, regardless of whether we are players in this game or not, or who the creator is. You can call him a prophet or God, whatever you want to call him. In the meantime, while we're waiting to see what the next stage is, if there is any, or this goes on in perpetuity, why not do, good as much as you can, as much as we can. We don't need a religion, an organized religion, or a prophet or preacher or priest or cantor or anyone to tell us what's right or what's wrong. For the most part, we know, and sometimes you stop before you do it. You question it, and you still do. How about me, not you? I would still do it, and I'm no I'm no saint, but I would like to, as much as I can, to do good as long as I'm here, or whatever this here is, for this stage, whatever. So, and I like that saying that those Zoroastrians have: good thoughts, good words, good deeds. I have no trouble doing that for people that I believe deserve it and are good and but the problem with me is doing that for folks that I don't particularly like, or I find abrasive or aggressive or violent or yeah. Anyway, Toby Talk again. Try to stay positive. I'm trying to, despite of what I just told you, what I believe. Namaste.